What's up, everybody? Chris here. Quick question to start. Would you trust your issued sidearm with your life? Would you strap it on every day and hand it to a teammate in a split-second moment where seconds matter? If that question makes you uneasy, you're not alone, especially this year. The Sig Sauer M17 and M18 saga has gone from dry acquisition speak into full-on PR crisis territory, and the more you dig, the more complicated and frankly unnerving the story becomes. Today we're going to walk through how we got here, the military's decision to replace the Beretta M9, the modularity-driven XM17 competition that put the P320 family into service, the early testing controversies, the subsequent reports of uncommanded discharges and lawsuits, and how all of that has shaped public and legal response. No hyperbole, no armchair engineering, just a clear look at the facts, the questions, and what it might mean for service members, agencies, and civilian owners. Let's rewind a bit. The Beretta M9 served for decades. It was the tool of choice after the 1911 era, and it proved tough in a lot of ways. But by the 2000s, the military was asking for something with more modern features: optics compatibility, accessory rails, modular grips for different hand sizes, and a design that could easily accept mission-specific changes. The Army launched the Modular Handgun System competition, not because anyone hated the M9, it still had plenty of fans, but because the requirements of war, ergonomics, and accessories had moved on. The MHS solicitation asked for a versatile package that could accommodate different users and different mission sets. Sig Sauer's P320 derived entry won that competition, and the M17 M18 designation followed, the M17 as the full-size service pistol and the M18 the compact variant. That technical change, from Beretta's long service design to SIG's modular architecture, made for a big headline. It should have been a technical story about ergonomics and logistics. Instead, it became the first act in a drama that would unwind in public, in courts, and in headlines. But winning the contract didn't make the debates stop. They intensified. There were immediate accusations that the testing wasn't apples to apples, and that the Army had cut corners in the evaluation. Opponents argued the competition was effectively decided before it had run to completion, and pointed to testing details, number of rounds, differences in test procedures, as evidence the process was rushed. Supporters countered that the program saved taxpayer money, that the P320 family checked the boxes the Army wanted, and that modernizing the sidearm was overdue. The Government Accountability Office and DoD documents show the selection and protest process was messy. There were performance data points, disputed interpretations, and at the end of the day, price played a role. That background matters because it frames two basic facts. First, the M17 M18 selection was controversial from the start. Second, once a platform is widely fielded, everyone watches it closely, for good and ill. Then the reports started trickling out. Uncommanded discharges, accidental firings, and stories from the field about pistols that fired when their users said they didn't intend them to. The phrase uncommanded discharge is a loaded one. It suggests the gun fired without a human trigger input. In real life, investigations have to untangle negligent discharge scenarios from mechanical defects, holster incompatibility, training gaps, and maintenance issues. Some early reports centered on holster fit and draw technique. Others pointed to drop safety and to certain early configurations of the fire control group. Whatever the technical answer is in any single case, the accumulation of reports has traction. When you have hundreds of reports across many jurisdictions and many users, people notice, and plaintiffs' lawyers notice too. A key part of the story is testing data. Early DoD product verification testing and follow-up testing raised questions about mean rounds between stoppages with certain types of test ammunition. Early figures that made the rounds showed that, under some test conditions, the P320 family had lower mean rounds between stoppages compared to historic figures for the M9, though subsequent fixes and component changes improved performance dramatically. This technical arc is important. Designs evolve, fixes are implemented, springs are revised, followers changed. Those adjustments matter in a tangible, mechanical way. They also matter in a legal way. Design changes, service advisories, and retrofit programs are what manufacturers do when problems are discovered. They are also precisely what plaintiffs' counsel will point to. You fixed it, and so you knew about it when building a case. Which brings us to the lawsuits. Over the last several years, multiple civil actions and class actions have been filed, alleging that SIG's P320 derived pistols have mechanically caused unintended firings that resulted in serious injury or death. Some suits allege negligent design and failure to warn. Others claim wrongful death in specific and tragic individual cases. When a firearm is both widely fielded by the military and sold into the civilian market, the legal stakes are huge. We've seen plaintiffs seek not not just damages, but court orders for design changes or nationwide remedies. And we've also seen government entities open inquiries. Lawsuits don't mean a design is fatally flawed. Lots of widely used products get sued, but in aggregate, they form a pressure point that affects perception, procurement decisions, and corporate strategy. There are real human stories behind all of this, and we can't lose sight of them. In recent incidents, active duty personnel were reportedly struck by their issue pistols in circumstances that prompted base-level investigations and, in some cases, operational pauses. Those headlines, the idea that a soldier, airman, or Marine was harmed while on duty because of their issued weapon, are the things that drive policy reviews and public concern faster than abstract reliability curves ever will. When an incident involves injury or death, the Department of Defense and law enforcement investigate. Those investigations take time, and their interim steps, pauses, safety advisories, or mitigation recommendations can look like incriminating actions to someone skimming headlines. But careful readers know investigations are procedural. You pause, you secure, you test, and you try to understand context before conclusions are drawn. On the technical side, a recurring theme in coverage has been the role of holsters and user technique. Not every reported firing has been traced to a mechanical fault. In many cases, holster retention, draw technique, or the presence of a finger on the trigger during an aggressive draw were contributing factors. Holster compatibility is a real-world problem that affects many platforms. A pistol that is safe in one holster might be marginal in another. That's not an excuse for a gun to fire without trigger input. Mechanical safeties exist for a reason, but it is part of the ecosystem. The manufacturer's responsibility is to design a robust platform, but keep in mind, users and procurement agencies also have duties. Correct holster selection, training, and maintenance are all part of safe firearm operation. Let's be blunt about the legal calculus. Large-scale adoption, military contracts, law enforcement contracts, and civilian sales means exposure. If a platform is alleged to have design shortcomings, three things happen at once. The brand's reputation deteriorates with a segment of customers, regulators and civil litigants increase scrutiny, and procurement agencies pause or reassess policies. Companies frequently respond by issuing safety advisories, redesigns, retrofits, or buybacks. Those steps can be expensive. They also send signals. A voluntary retrofit program is a tacit acknowledgement that some users need a remedy. In many industries, labeling changes, recalls, and retrofits are normal, but firearms are unique in how politically and emotionally charged they are, which magnifies every corporate decision. Public perception has been shaped less by technical nuance than by emotion. Social media thrives on short-form outrage. A clip of a pistol firing when a handler insists they didn't pull the trigger goes viral, and context gets lost. For some, the symbolic story is easy to narrate. The gun fires itself, and therefore, the gun is unsafe. For others, the narrative is, this is a manufactured panic to drive anti-gun policy. Reality is more complicated. Some incidents are negligent handling, some are holster problems, some reflect maintenance and storage issues, and some, perhaps, are design-related. The hard work of investigators is to sort which is which. The courtroom's job is to weigh evidence and assign responsibility. Meanwhile, the public conversation collapses complexity into a meme, and the company sits in the middle, trying to handle PR, liability, and engineering simultaneously. So what does Sig Sauer do while all this is happening? Step 1 is the technical response. Engineering fixes, safety upgrades, and, where needed, retrofit kits or replacement parts. Step 2 is legal, mounting a defense in court and negotiating when settlement is the prudent business move. Step 3 is communications, rebutting misrepresentations, explaining nuanced engineering fixes, and trying to keep law enforcement and military accounts functional. That three-pronged response is standard corporate crisis management. But for firearms, there's an extra challenge. A delayed or inadequate response can be spun into bad faith or negligence in court, while an overbroad apology or buyback can be read as an admission of defect. Companies walk a tightrope. We also should talk about the procurement and political angle. Remember how the M17 decision itself was criticized? That history feeds the narrative that the choice was controversial, and some observers now wonder whether the procurement process should have been more conservative in its testing or requirements. The reality is, procurement is always a blend of technical performance, life cycle cost, and programmatic schedule. Hindsight always makes decisions look prettier or uglier, depending on outcomes. That's why audits, GAO reviews, and DoD testing protocols exist to create oversight. If the Army or DoD didn't exercise sufficient caution, those institutional lessons will be part of after-action reviews. If SIG made engineering choices that were inadequate, courts and regulators will parse that carefully. One important point to stress, firearm safety is not purely an engineering problem. User training, holster selection, maintenance, and standard operating procedures matter enormously. Ask any armorer or range instructor and they'll tell you, most problems are preventable with good training and good kit. That said, the manufacturer still has to make designs as tolerant as possible to real-world human behavior. People are fallible, adrenaline changes everything, and gloves, sweat, and varying hand sizes complicate matters. The standard should be that a duty pistol remains safe under foreseeable real-world handling, not just under mythically perfect laboratory conditions. So where do we end up? We end up in a messy middle. SIG's P320 architecture won a major contract because it met a set of requirements the Army wanted. Early testing and later field data raised questions that prompted engineering fixes and programmatic attention. Multiple lawsuits and heart-wrenching incidents have increased scrutiny and public anxiety, and the result is a complex narrative where legal exposure, public perception, and engineering all feed each other. That complexity frustrates both extremes. People who want a simple, "it's unsafe" headline, and people who want to wave away every incident as user error. Both simplify reality. If you're a civilian gun owner, what should you do? First, keep your gear in good condition and use holsters that are proven for your model. Second, maintain basic training, draw practice, dry fire discipline, and safe storage. Third, watch for manufacturer safety advisories and follow them. If you're a law enforcement agency or a procurement officer, do your own testing, require holster compatibility reports, and insist on full-service life testing where practical. If you're a policymaker, be precise in your language. Accidents and negligence are not the same as design defects, and legislation should be narrowly tailored to address real problems without gutting lawful ownership or due process. If you're still wondering, as many of you are, whether the P320 family is fundamentally flawed, there's no single paragraph that will settle it. The answers live in lab reports, in court filings, and ultimately, in time. Designs can be improved, manufacturers can be held accountable, operators can be trained better. The important part is to keep the conversation grounded in engineering evidence and legal facts, rather than memes and outrage. Before we wrap, let me leave you with two practical takeaways. 1. If your daily carry or duty gun is a P320 derived pistol, check holster fit, follow any manufacturer safety notices, and keep your weapon clean and maintained. 2. If you're shopping for a duty pistol as an agency or buying gear for your team, insist on thorough compatibility checks between weapons, holsters, and operational gear, and budget time for realistic, user-in-the-loop testing. Cost and schedule matter, but not at the expense of safety. Alright, I want to hear from you. Are you convinced the P320 family is fixable with engineering fixes and better holstered procurement discipline? Or do you think the design has deeper problems that require more drastic remedies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up when new reports or court decisions come down. I read everything, and I'll be following this story and bringing you the updates as they happen. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.